Hello and welcome everyone. Today we have a special treat for you as we sit down with the brilliant mind behind Swayam, Dr. Shilpa Datar. Hello ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Hi Varsha.
As we celebrate Swayam's 3-year milestone, we are excited to hear more about your journey and the vision behind this incredible platform. So, can you share a story of how Swayam Analytics came to be?
Sure. So this dates back to what triggered me to even work in this area. In 97-98, my child was identified as being dyslexic, and the school wanted us to move them to a special needs school, but we refused as parents, and they continued in the same school. And I started working with special needs children to understand what it was all about. So 97-98, I'm sure you know that Google was not there. Even if it was not such a big giant that it is today. We had no access to internet. We didn't have smartphones and all that at that time, and no internet. So I had to go to libraries physically to find out, and there was no information about it. When I started working in a special needs school to understand what this was all about, and that's when I realized that all the tests that were being used to identify children with special needs or any other issues were all foreign tests and were not relevant to Indian children or an Indian audience. And very unfairly, we were categorizing because we didn't have any other go. So we were categorizing these children as being learning disabled, special learning disability, global learning, whatever, all such things. And they were put into special schools. And in India, the minute you put a child into a special school, they don't have access to a good education or, a career. Like how in other countries. So that is still a problem in India. So, and I felt that this is something that, I wanted to set right. And I felt that, being able to identify children at a younger age, to help them, to give them the necessary support, remediation, whatever other help that they needed, would be good for us so that we can bring up a generation without having to face these problems. And that's where my journey started. So I went on to do my master's in psychology, and even in the textbooks there was not much information about special needs and everything. And by then I was very disillusioned with the Western psychological models, because if you look at them, they only talk about Jung and Freud and all. They have studied people who have come into their clinics with mental health issues and then said if these are people with mental issues, then people without them are what normal people are. And that is a huge disadvantage, because absence of any issue is not a cause for saying that I'm normal. It doesn't really matter that way, work that way. So I felt that this is something, I was very disillusioned with that, and I was looking around to see what I could do, from where I could draw inspiration to build a test to identify children at a younger age. And I was very clear that the test has to be applicable to people across the world, not just Bangalore, South India. I live in Bangalore, so Bangalore, South India, Karnataka, that's not what I wanted. It has to be applicable, like how maths and physics are globally applicable theories and postulations. So that's how the whole thing started. And then I realized that Indian medical tradition, which is Ayurveda, yoga and all, they were rage by then. This is, I think, around 2001, 2002. They were a rage across the world. And they were based on the 5-element theory, Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Ap and Prithvi, and how these combine with each other at the physiological level to form the Tridoshas of Vata, Pitta and Kapha, which is what Ayurveda is based upon. And how these 5 elements combine with each other at the psychological level to form the Trigunas of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, which is what yoga also talks about. Patanjali talks about it when he in his Yoga Sutras. So I adopted this, and I studied the Vedas, the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Ayurveda, Puranas and everything, imported these concepts into the domain of psychology, where there's a lot of information about how to understand people, manas, behavior and everything in all these classical texts. So I imported that into the domain of psychology, and that was my PhD work at Regional Institute of Education, which is NCRT in Mysore University. And that's how I developed the tests. And then after I developed the tests, I have about 18 publications now, a couple of other also in press. And because of the stringent methodology I adopted, we are able to have very good accuracy in the tests. And then I didn't want it to, sit in a library doing nothing. So I wanted to see how I can make it applicable to people. While this is not yet being standardized for special needs children as on date, we have been able to use it with students, with undergrad students, high school students, undergrad students, corporates, across different scenarios, and very well demonstrated applications. So converted it to a company, and that's how we are here on our 3rd anniversary.
That's amazing, ma'am.
Thank you.
Can you share a little bit about how your background and how you got into the field of psychology?
Yeah. So when I was doing my PSc, I took up PCMB. I was studying in South Bangalore at that time, and I wanted to get into I wanted to become a architect.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and then I did my PCMB, and then I got a seat in Davangere or some such place. And my parents refused to send me. I'm an only child. So they refused to send me, and then I had no choice but to study in Bangalore. And Bangalore, all the seats were all filled up by then. And, my father said, I'm not going to do any, management seat and all that stuff. So you do whatever you're able to get into. So that was the condition, and which was fine with me. So, but then since I didn't get into, any of the colleges, architecture colleges in Bangalore, so I went in to do my BSc. So, but then I don't like chemistry. I find it very difficult to learn, and it doesn't sit in my brain at all. So I sat in the class for a week or 10 days or something, and it was terrible. I was ready to cry. So I went and I approached my principal, China Mangala. I studied in RV College. So I approached her, and then she was very sweet. She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know, but definitely not chemistry." So she said the latest thing that at that point of time was a lot of students were taking up journalism, English literature, and psychology. So she said, "Do you want to do that?" I said, "I don't know. Journalism sounds interesting. English literature, I always liked reading and English literature." So I said, "That is okay, but I don't know what psychology is, though it sounds interesting. I would like to just see." So she said, "I'll give you permission. You go sit in the class for a week or 10 days. I'll give you permission to go read the books in the library also. You see if you like it, and then I will admit you into a BA course." So I said, "Okay, fine." And then, she gave me the letter that all the lecturers admitted me. There was no issues, and I loved psychology. I just enjoyed studying it. So I went back to her. I said after 10-15 days, and I said, "This is something I really like doing. Can I continue?" So yeah, go ahead. And then that was done. And then after I finished that, I came back home and I told my parents that I've moved to, BA. Yeah, they didn't even know, but they were fine. They said, "As long as you're happy studying it, we have no problem." That's how I came into psychology.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us some of the challenges that you faced while you were developing the test and building Swayam?
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges because I wanted to do this from the Indian perspective. At that point of time, when I wanted to do my PhD, this was maybe in 2004 or 5. I started working in this area in 2003-4, immediately after I completed my master's. So then what happened is, there were not many people. Indian psychology as we know it today was not even very popular then, hardly known, I can say. And then, for me to go study that and then import that into the domain of psychology and have it validated itself was, people were saying that, how is this even possible? It's not possible. And I'm not a student of Ayurveda. So I had to study the classical texts, from the beginning. It was very, very difficult. Yeah. And then go back to the English translation. I don't know Sanskrit. Now I can read and write a little bit, and I understand a little bit also, but not to the extent that, the Pandits and all that speak. So for me to bring that in and then, standardize it was a hell of a task. Second is that the Ayurvedic community is very, very close-knit. So they don't want to talk to outsiders. And I'm a total non-Ayurvedic background, right? So initially I found it very difficult to even find people to talk to me. I've had people, Ayurvedic doctors, experienced with 10-15 years of experience, doctors with MD and all that, who just refused to speak to me because they said they felt that I would steal their thought and they would be left with nothing in 2004-5 and all that. Yeah, so that way it was very difficult, and then everybody said, this is like getting into the heart of the matter, and what I've done, right? They said this is impossible for you to do. It's even for Ayurvedic people, they find it difficult to understand Prakriti. You're not going to be able to do it, forget it. So that made it even more challenging for me, and I said I have to do it now. It made me more determined. So multiple things, and then while test development itself, because we were looking at all three, Vata, Pitta and Kapha, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas are present in a person at all point of time, right? So initially we found it very difficult to even do the statistical analysis. It took us almost 1.5 years to even break that and get a sort of a breakthrough to understand how we could go about doing the analysis. So multiple ways of multiple different kinds of problems I faced and challenges. So
okay, so what sets Swayam Analytics apart from the other psychometric platforms that you know of?
Yeah, so we are completely based on the Vedic knowledge systems. So we have adopted that, imported that into the domain of psychology, and then built the tests around it. So that's one major difference. Second is that we are the only assessment company in the world which analyzes people on the physiological, psychological and ethical aspects of behavior. So that's another major thing. And I think these two are, and our tests are based on rigorous amount of more than 12-13 years of research. So many published papers on it. In fact, somebody from the US also, they've used our tests, university, business university in the US. They've used our tests to identify people who are at risk of committing economic fraud using our tests, and they have gone on to publish a paper. So, and then it's being used in Germany. So, multiple different ways that we are different.
That's nice. Okay, so how do you think personality tests can help individuals in their personal lives beyond their academics or career development?
I think it's very important for all of us to know who we are as an individual. And in India, we are not given that kind of information. From the younger age onwards, we are not in touch with our emotions, our feelings. And we are not encouraged to, think about ourselves. What is it that I like? What do I want? Things like that. You're just told, your father tells you you are supposed to do this, your mother tells you you're supposed to do, your grandmother, your uncle, aunt. Everybody is telling you what to do, and you're not really exposed to your own emotions. And that is a huge disadvantage that we have compared to, other countries. And I feel in India, it's especially important that for us, not only in India, across the world, for us to be in touch with who we are as a person, know ourselves, and that has lot of ripple effect in the way we talk, the way we interact with people, helping us behave better, the way we respond to situations, our interpersonal relationships, our relationships at the work setting, everything. It has an effect on everything. So it's very important for us to know who we are.
How do you feel when people ask you if your tests have been accredited? What is your reaction to
that? First is the tests have been accredited. But the thing is that, when I try to explain to people that, this was my PhD work at Mysore University, which is a center of excellence. And a board of professors have gone through it. It's been sent, the PhD thesis itself has been sent to 4 or 5 different professors to vet it, to verify that it's been done properly, and then only you get your PhD degree, right? It's not a mean task. So when I tell them that all that has been done, I don't need an accreditation. You can't get an accreditation higher than a university degree. But they don't understand. No, has it been accredited? Because it's like, many of these HR people, it's like they have a list that they need to tick off. Has it been accredited? Is the reliability good? Is the validity good? They don't even know what reliability and validity is. But then, they need to tick it off. And then when they say that, because I was not able to convince them, it was so difficult, I said, okay, fine, let me just go get it accredited, and that's what I did. And it's very frustrating because, how can any accreditation be higher than a university degree? But they don't understand that. So I had to just give in and go and get it done.
Okay. So some of them even ask you if you can compare Swayam assessments to MBTI or other Western personality assessments. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's again one more joke, because how do you compare oranges and apples? Yeah. So the Western psychological tests, most of them, none of them are assessing people on the the physiological and the psychological. So they've always had a Cartesian dichotomy of the body and the mind. So they say that the mind doesn't influence the body and the body doesn't influence the mind. So that's been their thing. But then if you look at the medical aspect, psychosomatic diseases are prevalent across the world. Your BP, diabetes, predominantly psychosomatic. But how do they explain that? They don't. They just ignore it. So in India, that's not been the tradition. We all feel that the body, the mind and the spirit are a tripod. In fact, that's one of the first sutras in Ayurvedic texts, in Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita, that the body is that a human being is a tripod of the body, mind and the spirit, the intellect. Not the intellect, the spirit. So when that is the case, and we have followed that tradition in all schools of thought. So can you think if you're feeling any bodily problem or something? You can't. In the same way, if your mind is anguished, it's going to have a effect on your body. So how can you explain this to them? So you can't really tell them all this in a conversation, because at that point of time you're dealing with a client and everything. But it really makes me wonder whether these people have got a degree at all, when they're trying to ask me about whether how do you compare this with MBTI or any other Western
also,
test.
I'm sure culture also plays an important role.
Yes, it does. So culture plays a role in developing me as to who I am as an individual. Yeah, that does play a role. But we've tried to negate all that. Right? So we consider ourselves to be global citizens. Even then, if you're comparing apples and oranges, it becomes very difficult. Yeah. So there's really no true answer, no proper answer when you're talking with a client. Yeah. So we just say, no, we haven't tried to do that. It's very difficult. Can we do it in your organization? Then they back off. Yeah. So it's okay.
All right. So how does your personal values and beliefs influence the kind of work you do?
So, before 2003 or 4, when I started working in this, specifically in Indian psychology area, I was completely unaware of what is Indian philosophy. I mean, philosophy, that, something people think a lot and do things and all that. Yeah. Not really much idea about what philosophy is or, Indian psychology, so not heard of it at all. But today, after me personally having studied a lot of these texts and having worked in this area for about 20 years now, I think who I am as a person has become very closely aligned with the kind of work that I do. At some point it becomes inseparable for me, which is not a right thing also, But then I think I breathe the values that I've brought into Swayam, and it's vice versa. It influences me in what I do as a person on a daily life.
True. Okay, so what has been the most rewarding part of developing personality assessments and these tests? How has it been for you?
So when students, we work with students and corporates both. So when we do the report explanation and we do the counseling and all for them, when they come back and tell me that this report is like a mirror to my mind, it's about 98% accurate and all that, that really makes everything that I've gone through worth it. Yeah.
That's nice. So what's a very surprising thing you learned about personality through your work, if you can recall it?
Something very...
Anything while you were learning about assessments, about the entire Ayurveda perspective, something very interesting that you understood about personality?
That there's no true wrong answer at all. That's one interesting thing, and we learn about it in college and all that, when you're trying to study about personality and you're trying to ask questions, cannot be a wrong answer, because it's true to me. If I say that, I get angry fast, it's true to me. Everybody has their own unique personality. So, and it's fascinating how, while all of us feel the same things, the way we respond is very different, and there can never be a wrong situation in that. Because at that point of time, I do what I think is right. Right? So it's fascinating to see that, the range of emotions, the range of thing, even though there are, anger, fear, and there are only the 6-7 kind of emotions that are there. But the variations in that leads to so many millions of people where no two people are alike.
Yes.
So that's one fascinating thing that I find.
That's very interesting. Okay, so what's one myth about personality assessments that you would like to debunk?
Everybody asks me when I tell them that I'm a psychologist, they tell me that, can you read my mind? Can you read my face?
I can relate.
Yeah. So, you can't read people's mind. You can interpret their behavior by what they say, what they do, what they talk, and what they're thinking about also to a certain extent. We can infer that from what they're doing. So that it's very difficult for people to understand. It's all inference, and then you validate your inference by what they say and revalidate it or calibrate those things. So that is one common myth, that we don't read people's mind. We infer a lot of things.
Yes. Okay. So now, can you tell us how do you see the field of psychology evolving in the future, in the coming years?
Yeah, I think it's going to be some difficult as well as good times for psychology, because we're being accepted and respected as a profession. So that's a good thing. And most students are coming into the field of psychology. But I see that most students are only looking at psychology from the view of counseling. Counseling is not the only thing in psychology. Trauma or psychological issues and counseling is not the only thing, though there is a huge lack for that in India. But we have organizational behavior, we have child psychology, we have school psychology, we have so many different fields, and the proportionate number of people going into all these different things is very, very less.
Yeah.
So I think bringing in awareness in the college itself about what psychology is, what are the different areas, and how it's going to impact people, society, so that students can decide where they want to really get into. Like if you look at engineering, they have so many different areas, chemical, physical engineering, biomedical. Yes, very clearly defined. And then what those areas consist of. Like that we don't have for psychology. So I think somebody needs to make an effort to put those things on paper, put it out on the internet, bring in awareness, and that way it's very exciting. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you see Swayam evolving in the future? Like, what is your vision for the company, if you can share with us?
Yeah, so we want to grow Swayam where we are able to become the leader in psychometric assessments, especially Indic psychometric assessments, where we already have a headway here. And then integrate that with generative AI, that is the current rage now across the world. I'm very fascinated by it. So integrate it with that and see how we can use that. It's very exciting to see how you can bring in automation to do some of the tasks which are really very boring on a day-to-day basis, so that you can devote more time to other things that are more interesting, and more important. So I think there are some exciting times ahead for psychology, as long as we're ready to adopt and adapt with the times. And that is also, very difficult and also challenging. So I think this is going to be a landmark time in history when we, people are going to judge us by, whether we adapted to the current scenario and then moved forward to provide our services to a lot more people or not.
Okay. So now how do you think personality assessments will evolve in the future? And
yeah, so I think personality assessments will again combine with a lot of AI and ML and all that, and a lot of things are going to be automated. And I think especially with the way governments are moving nowadays, becoming more, they're more aware of the citizens. They want to keep a watch on everything that's happening. We have cameras everywhere today. So I think all those things are going to also pull into who I am as a person when they bring in all that different information. So it's also scary, may not be something that a lot of people approve of, but also something that we have to know that it's going to happen in the future.
And how is Swayam preparing for this?
Like I said, we need to integrate with generative AI and then see how we can, support in a very ethical way, because we don't want to be a Cambridge Analytica, definitely, but be more ethical about it, be more mindful about it, and how we can support different things. Very exciting times. I think, I would love to see how we can evolve.
Yeah. Okay, so finally, my last question to you is, can you describe a typical day at Swayam? How is it working?
No 2 days at Swayam are the same. I start with something on everybody starts with one thing and then they're ending with something else. Sometimes half the work doesn't get done, but then they're doing something else. But not a boring day at work, definitely not. It's always exciting. It's always, sometimes it's, like we want to tear our hair out, but then it's a good day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was very nice talking to you, ma'am. And I hope you grow and build. So
Absolutely. Thank you, Varsha. Lovely talking to you.